my world, oh my world, yeah.
Hello everyone listening in. This is the Atticus.1 radio show for today. What is today? I have to check. May 13th. Funny. We're going to start things off with a rousing conversation on compassion. I like compassion quite a lot, so let's get this started here.
I suppose you're waiting for me, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Go for it.
It's just go for it, is it? Is that what we're going to do? Just say go for it? Well, who's here first of all? Is anyone else here?
Yeah,
I'm here.
So Sander, who we got? We've got Bashy there, obviously we've got you, Dale, we've got Rose. Bourne's lurking in the back room somewhere over there. Why don't you come down here, Bourne?
Whoops, didn't have my microphone. I'm on, I'm here.
Constant problem, right?
Yeah, I had the same problem too. I'm here too.
Oh, Bree's here too. Well, we're going to talk about compassion. Is that what we're going to talk about?
Seems to be the consensus.
I'm hardly
here.
the person to... Sorry?
I think that's the consensus here. I thought that's what I read, so... Sounds fun. I like compassion.
I'm not sure if I'm the person to talk about it.
Neither am I.
Bob, are you coming down into this room? Or are you going to stay up? Well, what can we say about compassion? I don't really think I'm the person to talk about compassion. I can tell you what I know about it. I know that it can be controlled. I know that many people have learned to do so. I mean, what do you consider compassion, Dale? Do you think it's a mental state, or what? What do you think it is?
Well, I consider compassion finding what someone needs in you more than anything else and freely giving it to them. That's what I consider the most pure, true form of compassion.
Well, I'm probably talking more about, the physicalities of it, maybe. I mean, for instance, the compassion is controlled by a part of the brain. I don't know if you're familiar with that part of the brain. It's the insula. It's a part of the brain that sort of maps the organs, particularly the heart. There's some ventricles in it, and they're filled with liquid, and they basically emulate the heart. And this has been proved. This is scientific fact. It's got nothing to do with conjecture or anything. I mean, compassion is generated when the insula and the heart work together. And some people can control their insula or the way it moves and the way it controls other parts of the body. Science can't really explain it, really, as far as I know. They can measure it. They've been measuring it for a while. For instance, Tibetan monks and so on. They've actually been in MRI scanners and had that part of the brain scanned, and they can see the activity in it, which is quite disconcerting when you're in an MRI scanner, I should think, because I've been in one a few times, and they're very noisy and quite claustrophobic and what have you. And yet these guys can still, under that kind of duress, stimulate that part of the brain. So they know it's there. And I believe there was I'm not sure what his name was. There was a PhD of some sort who's working on something to do with this, and he actually went to measure these monks. And I think they had about, they got permission from the Dalai Lama and what have you, and had about 300 of these guys sitting in a hall, and it was the first time they were going to do it. And they had a laptop there on stage, and they had electrodes to stick on, and they had the subjects sitting up there on a chair. When they, explained that they were going to measure compassion and started putting electrodes on the chap's head, the whole hall, they all started laughing, like really, really guffawing, fairly hysterical. And it wasn't until they got the guy some months later back in the lab that they asked him, why was, they thought they were just laughing at maybe what they were doing or whatever. But he actually said, no, you were talking about measuring compassion and you put the electrodes on my head. And he said they found that absolutely hysterical. So that will give you some idea of how they think about that sort of thing and where they think it's generated and so on. So as I said, science can't really explain it, but they can definitely measure it. So you take, someone who's an expert in that. So one of these monks is an expert in raising their compassion and turning it on under any circumstances, even quite, fretful circumstances. They manage to attain this sort of, I won't say bliss because it's not that, but this empathy, this compassion for others, and understanding whatever's going on in front of them, and all about it, and reading everything around it, because obviously we put out, as humans, we put out all sorts of intermingling frequencies and everything really. So I suppose you call it the aura, but that's something you can see or you can't. Some people can. I believe they can measure it with a camera now of some sort. Some clever dick has managed to sit you in front of a camera, can see your mood change and so on. But people don't realise that they pick that up. Well, a lot of people do. But most people don't realise that they pick that up. You can feel a mood in a room. That's not, that's not rubbish. That's real. And someone like me that's been trained in controlling a situation or under certain circumstances, it can be quite effective. Under others, it's completely useless. But so someone like a monk like that can turn that compassion on. Well, I was trained to do the opposite. I was taught to turn it off. So he's trained to create compassion, and I was trained to decrease or null compassion. The interesting part is when you decrease your compassion, you increase your level of control over others. People fixate on the physical display of compassion or the lack of it, So really, I suppose what I'm trying to say is if you can develop a compassionless persona, say in a business arena, where everyone else is trying to, put their best foot forward, and you can inflict that non-feeling, I was going to say cold because it's not necessarily cold, but that cold essence in a room, or even in an extreme circumstances, if you made threat of physical violence via your demeanour, people think that's just, he looks angry or he looks like he's going to do something. There's a lot more to it than that, especially if you can invoke it. It's got nothing to do with physical stature or size or anything like that. Madman's got the strength of 10 and all the rest of it. It's all to do with that. It's about projecting your road forward. And if you can control your compassion, well, you can make that, especially if you're trying to take something over or move through a situation, you can that really facilitates you in a big way. So basically what I'm saying in a nutshell is a lack of compassion gives way to certain control mechanisms. And people that are compassionless or have trained themselves to not show any compassion whatsoever tend to be rather good with figures and business, really, because it's a compassion, there's no compassion in business whatsoever, as everybody knows. So the heart can be controlled in this manner. And that is really where you put your punch out from. Many a time I've seen a guy smaller than another guy get in a fight just because he was right and he knew he was right and his heart was in it. He managed to win. We've all seen that sort of thing. So what I'm saying is the intellect and the heart work together, and that is also proven as well, I believe, medically. What do you think of that? I mean, is that anything you heard before?
Yeah, I guess that's the neurological aspect of it. And, it makes perfect sense. And there are a lot of studies that concur with what you said. A lot of studies based on neurons and particular cells in the heart and in the brain and similarities between the two two tissue types.
You see, if you link this with other knowledge, like for instance the attentional blink. Have you heard that term before, the attentional blink?
Possibly.
Well, the attentional blink. You say like you drive, don't you, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you do a monotonous journey, the same one, quite regularly?
Not often.
Have you in the past though, where you've had to go to a certain place where you've had to work every day or whatever?
Back in high school, I'd have to drive to school every day.
Right, so there'll be parts in your journey where you're driving on, especially in the morning, and the roads all look the same at a certain part of the journey, and you'll have to, you'll suddenly turn around from thinking about something and think, well, where the bloody hell am I? How far on the journey am I? Or, I don't remember going over that junction. I know I've gone over that junction because of where I am on the journey, but I cannot for the life of me remember actually doing it. I mean, have you been in that kind of situation before?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, that's the attentional blink. That a longer version of that, I believe, is a fit. When someone has epilepsy, it's a similar thing. It's a gap in the consciousness. Now, if you can learn to spot those, that's where you jump in with this kind of control. And people like me were trained in that situation. However, it does help if you've got some natural attributes that go that way with you. If you can control, if you already are a fairly powerful individual in regards of your character or whatever, or you're bred from my instance, you've been bred that way. That added with adrenaline in a stressful situation, you can become quite a cocktail and quite a package. I mean, for instance, I was legging it from somewhere once, and I was running down a set of stairs with half a dozen guys chasing me, and I got to the bottom, an office building there. I got to the bottom, and there's a security guard standing at the bottom of the stairs, right in front of the door, big guy as well. And I shouted at him, open the door, and he just opened the door, and I ran straight out. And I think the trouble, I bet he got in all sorts of trouble when they all got down the stairs after him. Like, what the fuck did you leave the door open? Why did you open the door and so on? But he's taking advantage of that situation. And if you've got adrenaline in your system as well, and you're capable of broadcasting that, I mean, it can be, especially in a stressful situation, can be very, very useful, very powerful. And we've all been in situations like that, and I know as I'm saying this, people are sitting there thinking, well, I remember when so-and-so did something that I didn't think they would do, considering it was just little old me. Well, those are the situations I'm talking about. We've all had those moments in life, and what that is that's you taking a hold of the situation with parts of your brain, which are very basic, because the insula is almost the seed of the brain. That's at the top of the stem, and it's the rest of the brain, as you see it, grows on the outside, and it literally, it's progressive like that. So these things are deep-seated, and that's one gland. You've got 5, and being able to control or squeeze or use these in conjunction with each other can set you in good stead in a situation. And I think that's what someone like me, that's about the best way I can put it. The problem is this training affects you genetically, really. That's a proven fact as well, actually, mind and body. It's a proven fact that if you think a certain way, it can change your makeup, especially over a generational stance. And that's what I mean by people that are bred like me. It was basically just people keeping tibs and tabs on certain attributes and putting those attributes together with other people that possess other certain attributes. There's no sort of syringes or anything like that involved. It literally has been done over 800 or 900 years by people that didn't at first really know what they were doing, to all intents and purposes, scientifically. But they knew whereof or what of they were doing, should we put it that way. So, I mean, we could bang on about the insula and the brain and so on forever, because, but where do you want to go? I mean, you could say, that's why I asked you what you meant by compassion, because I'm talking about two sorts of compassion. Compassion you feel when you conversely talk about it with other people and you empathise with each other about something. But there's also compassion that you project, that you actually project on someone along with other feelings. And I've had a lot of questions about, are you telepathic? And it's all complete rubbish. No, I'm not at all. What I am is good at manipulating what you can all feel and see around you. It just so happens that my volume's slightly up higher. I can actually hear and see and feel things. Maybe you could say I'm oversensitive. I am a sensitive person, really, I suppose, really in a lot of ways. That's why I get so angry or so upset, maybe. It's all intensities. Bashi said to me before, you're like a bull in a china shop sometimes, which is true, and that's all part of trait, really. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your trait is going to Nature versus nurture. Your nurture has got a hell of a lot to do with it. It doesn't just mean that if you're that way inclined that you're going to fulfil your potential. It does help if the nurture around you is of the same ilk.
Yeah, and that all makes good sense. And also having to do with, I guess, controlling a subject and whatnot. A lot of it depends on the frequency, on what waves the brain is working on, whether it be alpha or beta. So when someone drops into alpha, they're more likely to be influenced by external means, whatever they may be.
Yeah, I mean, now you're talking about pure science, which is where I fall down. I can only talk about what I was shown as the grunt I was shown it at that time, because you've got to understand what they were just seeing with me, as they do with many people. What I didn't realise at the time is the infrastructure that's based through society, especially in England. Probably lots of it. I can only talk about England because I came through it. I mean, when you're tagged because of misfortune of birth or whatever, with me it was just put together. But there are other people that you could say are throwbacks, I suppose. And it's you're no different to anybody else in any respect. It's just certain attributes they see in you and so on. And I grew up in the East End of London, so it wasn't silver spoon in your mouth town. So it was nothing to do with that. It was just certain ways you could behave. So certain ways I behaved at school when I was allowed to be there and so on. Wasn't so much violent or anything like that, just instigator in some ways. I would always have 2 or 3 people helping me do something, and it usually led to us all getting in trouble. And it was always me in the forefront of it. So I suppose that was picked up on. And then of course, I got in trouble, a lot of trouble, in trouble inside and so on, and things like that. This is all, but you're put on programs. This is what I didn't know. I've recently spoken to my mother. She's found me through the Rulers of the World thing, and we've had some long discussions. And I realised that a lot of the programs I was put in as a youngster, they weren't really operating in the area I was living and so on. So it was weird that sometimes I was transported from one side of London to the other side of London, and put on, for instance, just to give you one, when I was about 10 or 12, I was put on. They had this banner racing thing that they'd do. They'd let you pick a car from the scrapyard, and they'd let you work on the car, learn everything about the car, make it safe, learn to smash the car up without debilitating the car, and understand how to control the car in a turbulent environment and so on. Well, when I came later on to real school, shall we say, young man's school, the School of Hard Knocks, when I came, I found those skills very handy. Fixed many a car at the side of the road to get myself out of shit. Jumped in various cars to get myself out of shit, and been able to drive calmly but precisely and get away. Now those that initial learning curve when I was much younger stood me in good stead when I was shown how to do other things like that. It already gave you a nurture there, a base block to perform on. There's loads of courses. We were sent away to a place in Wales where we were taken out into the woods for 2 weeks with this chap, and basically did the whole, what's his name, Bear Grylls thing. And the funny thing was that most of us city kids, when we got somewhere like that, the first thing we did was jump a fence and go down a pub, or find somewhere to go like that, But for some reason, I'm thinking of a particular time actually, that's how I would have reacted usually, especially with the chaps I was there with. But that one particular time, I actually did stayed with the group for near enough the whole course, and did take a lot of it in, and realised that it was actually very interesting, and it would actually stand you in good stead in some sort of situations if you were in them. Now, to recognise that at those years wasn't standard in the sort of people that I was in that class with, and this is the kind of thing you're weighed upon. And then of course you're set into the world and set up, you set yourself up because of your nature, and you're facilitated. Someone will come up to you, and in my particular instance it was through parties and the music business media. Ended up in the media business, but that's recording studios and so on. So that's how I made my money. But when you start making a certain amount of money, that's when you're approached, and you're approached in such a subtle way. And of course I know that now because I've policed these arseholes that do the approaching, because this is, the big misnomer about who and what and where and who was who and what I was, A lot of conjecture about that because people just didn't understand what I was trying to say and were too busy thinking about what they were going to say next, about what I was saying, to actually listen to what I was saying in the first place. So a lot of mistakes were made. But so there's nothing special about me in this respect. I've got a couple of odd physical attributes which are unusual, and certain people would like to take a chunk out of me, some very odd characters which Brooke was actually digging into for me just before an unfortunate situation. So we'll pick that up when she comes back. But we plan to uncover as many of these situations as we can, and these people. And I'm going to go and try and find some people to interview if they will come forward, people who've done and been in the same situation as me, real people that really have. The problem is they're all quite well off, and they're all, there's no, one of the first desires put into you is to keep yourself to yourself. As I said to you before, done more talking in the last 18 months than I've ever done in my life. I was recently tried to gag me, and I was in a room with three chaps, with my brief, and my barrister, and they basically said, that's your lot unless you shut your mouth. And we went away and we had to think about it, and we came back and I stood up and I basically said, look, the situation is this, I can't give you a promise that I will keep my mouth shut now, I won't dig like I'm going to, and won't expose what I'm going to the best of my knowledge, because I can't make that promise, because I know I won't keep it because of my newfound voice. I like it too much. I like being able to point people in the right direction so that they're not running around in circles, because as we all know, it's in plain view right out there, just as Mr. Maxwell said, in various forms and shapes. And it is really quite intriguing, I suppose, in a lot of ways, to see the control mechanisms from this side of the fence, as I am now, looking in, having a complete, epiphany, as it were, enforced epiphany. And I'm like everyone else, I pay my bills, I do what I've got to do and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's been a baptism of fire for me as well, looking from this side of the fence and being able to mix with you guys and look at your ethics and your philosophy and then compare them to mine has been a massive education for me in a lot of ways, which is kind of weird because, I was out in the world in business really, but it's surprising how insular you get at the top when, because people always look at you as the cash cow or they want something from you and so on. Well, you guys haven't done that, you're my friends anyway, so this has been, so you'll say something from the hip and not care if you're going to offend me or so on. This has been a real eye-opener, a good thing, I think, in the long run.
Yeah, I enjoy
Steve, I have
talking
a
with
question.
you.
I have a, how to say, not question, but can you elaborate a little bit about these control mechanisms which are applied to us, which we might not be so aware of, but which you can see from your perspective more clearly?
Well, I think the thing is, you may not be aware, you can't see the wood for the trees, it's really quite plain. I think if I said something, you'd be aware of it. I think that's how it works. As soon as someone points a finger at something or rings it in any way, the mind starts to clear. But if you're walking past it and it's almost subliminal, this is where the controls come in. So that's what I'm kind of talking about. I mean, there are a group of people that we would call, we've got nicknames for them, we call them the fiends. Deceitful people, they're who they are who you know they are. You go out and aid and abet them with every breath and involuntary, it's every penny you spend. And every way you go about things, it's an involuntary benefit, to them. It's embedded in the system, Even the people that object are used. For instance, violence, force. They welcome that from any sort of resistance because, It gives them a chance to meet it with the same. And this is, well look, this put it this way. If this take recent events, let's take the Wall Street occupations and so on. And we all saw the footage and so on. So you all saw that, So you're all decent, free-thinking and fair-minded people, okay? So if you want to go out and protest peacefully and justly, you're told you can, aren't you? It's a free country, particularly especially in America and so on. And here they say, free country, you can go and do what you like. But if I ask you honestly, and be honest with yourselves, if you're not going to be honest with me, ask yourselves what images you really remember from all of that. And what you're going to really remember, I would hazard a guess, is the people just like you getting their faces smashed in by the front line of coppers. That kind, and that's really pumped, that footage. That's the thing that you're going to see. That's what everyone wants to see. And then in turn, people were moved towards violence, and no one wants to see the sun and the flowers. They want to see someone getting punched in the face. This is what TV land's about. So that the whole thing is funneled into a direction, and they'll push that kind of footage. And the reason they'll do that is because the ordinary decent people, such as yourselves, you're really dangerous. You're the most dangerous of all, and they know that. So they really want to keep you away, because it's not good footage when it's viewed in one way, and it is good footage viewed in another way. So for instance, if you're sitting at home under that kind of oppression and you see that kind of footage, bloke standing there with his pram and his glasses on, just basically standing there, and some idiot with a truncheon smashes him over the head because he won't move back a foot, that puts a fear in you, you don't go. But if someone can point that out in a different aspect, and point out the injustice of it with a totally different aspect, and not be gagged and it ringed like that, you'll look at it in a different way. And that's what they're worried about you doing, because you're very dangerous, because you guys are the people that make the wheels go round. You not only produce, you consume. If you ever look up and say no, that's when their gaze will really become clear. You'll understand immediately what you're actually under. And then, of course, those controls will start popping up because they get a little bit more candid, a bit more brash, a bit more pointed, but they won't care at that point. But the thing is, you're in this problem. You've got children and commitments, and those offspring count on those commitments. You have to think of that, and all this is by design. This is a cage you live in. The door's open at the moment, but you're still in it. And you've been in it for 200 years. That's why I laugh quite often, when I said in that original video, the flag that we set up just to draw everyone in. I said, people that are thinking they've got some sort of fight on their hands are, they're in the wrong hemisphere thinking-wise. You lost 200-300 years ago. There isn't, look around you, all you'll see is 70% apathy because of this kind of design. There's another way though, and the whole system, the whole thing, if you want to call it a system, is set up to keep you steered away from that. And people like me getting out and telling you anything like this is never going to happen. There's a very particular reason that I'm being able to do it, because of their own stupid religion. They aren't going to do anything to me. So they're hoisted on their own flagpole with me. Because of this breeding and so on, they consider that real bad juju to do something to me. But I'll tell you what, recently, with some of the information that we've stuck out there, especially about the symbolic languages and the emblematic languages, I got quite a few threats, but all idle. So and I know their heads are turning. I can feel it. I'm sure you guys could recently. I mean, I know we've had various occurrences, no helicopters, various occurrences in the Agora and with our Skypes and so on. So I know we really are pushing the right buttons now with that kind of thing. Oh, maybe you want to talk about that, I don't know. Maybe you want to talk about the groups of people. I mean, I've mentioned the things, or what I would call the things. You've got the fortunates, the elderlies, and these are all terms, that I'm blabbing for the first time. I mean, there are people literally right now sitting in their seats cringing that I'm doing this. It's totally against the grain. It really is. But this was only, I was only able to do this because of what was done to me. And the fact that I was afforded the ability to make an oath and not keep it because I was under someone else's direction. So, I'm quite willing, and we'll keep going to a point.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, Mark.
Sorry. Sorry for the late arrival. I was just curious about the connections with programming. I'm thinking of the gay community, and it seems at some point in the 70s, corporate America took over the Castro.
Well, the thing about the gay community is you've got to look at it from a logic. Let's put compassion to one side, and let's all be managers. Let's play devil's advocate and be managers. The pink pound is as good as any pound. So management is what it's about. So yeah, there are controls in there, and yes, things are tweaked as we go along by the media. But what you've got to understand is that there isn't any one person in the media. What you'll do is you'll find a group that are against homosexuality, and you will tweak them, and you'll go and find someone who's very prevalent in gay pride, and you'll tweak them too, and you'll set those two people off against each other. This is how it's used, and this is done by putting people in jobs that you know are going to think a certain way. Like certain religious people are really against gay people. So if you put that person in a job as a whatever, some sort of management or liaison team, of course they're going to go up and go to the interview and be politically correct and all the rest of it. But the guys that are controlling the interview, one of those guys will be sympathetic to what I'm talking about, and they will be quite a powerful individual in character, and they will sway the other two to hiring that person who's being politically correct, knowing full well there's been a nod and a wink in some way, shape or form. And I'm sure you've seen that kind of prejudice rear its head many times on the QT, on the quiet.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I do call it the gay shame parade now, mainly because, as you've noted, the media focuses on the freak show aspect and not our day-to-day person.
Well, that's all deliberate, isn't it? This is the kind of control, and this is what I'm saying. The managers that make those programs are making them for production companies that are owned. But there are a lot of private production companies out there, and they find it really hard to get anywhere in the media industry and get any funding and so on, when there is literally tons of money in it. Take Rosebud, who's a member on this forum. She's had all sorts of difficulties like that, getting funding and so on. She's done it, and she's been up the hill and down the hill again. But she's learned that it's that you start at the hill, at the bottom of the hill with zero. You go all the way up, make your film, do what you've got to do, and then you come down the other side, and there you are 3 years later, exhausted, with zero again. And this is the plight of anyone in independent production, in anything really, especially in the media industry. And there's a reason for that, because they want to place people that are going to be controlled. So the first way to control people is through money. So syndicated programs that do really well are always from the larger media distributors. And that's control. It's as simple as that. The people that actually own those companies are right out and out elite controllers, and they're quite out in the open. I believe Aaron Russell spoke quite vehemently about that. You remember he made that film Trading Places, which is a total slap in the face of the very individuals I'm talking about, because he knew damn well they existed, because he'd existed in the media and film industry for so long, and he'd seen it, and eventually was approached by one. So, it's there, the control's there. And when you control media and propaganda, you control everything, period, because you can get people when they're young with what toys they buy. And you go in with your loyalty card to the supermarket, and they give you loyalty points back, and you're getting like 20 quid off your shopping at the end of the month, and you're thinking, well, it doesn't cost me anything, I'll just give them the card. But what they're actually doing is taking that data and using that data and selling that data. For instance, Walmart, the Xbox machine, it's got this camera on the top of it now with sensors, and you control the Xbox with your body. That thing, if it's not unplugged physically from the wall, each night will still pick up and retrieve all the information of people that walk in the room. It retrieves information of logos on shirts, so what products you're buying, what's popular, what's not. It logs that to your age and all the other information that goes with it, and Walmart just bought that information from Microsoft for something like $14.5 million recently. But they don't publicise that, do they? Because if you start publicising those sort of deals, that's when one of these controls stops to work, because this is ringing something that you all know is there, but you haven't really quite looked at. For instance, Microsoft buying Skype recently for 830 million bucks cash, I might add, because of the markets of what they like. That whole plan. Sorry?
Cash, why cash? Yeah, I have a question.
Because bonds and the share markets are totally worthless. Everyone knows that, you know, if you're anything to do with all that, you're playing with paper, you're not playing with money. There's no real value in anything there. So if you actually want to buy something as prevalent as Skype, you better come up with the real bucks. And this is quite often traded in gold. But that's basically what happened. It was a cash deal. There was no banks involved as such. They actually had lorries transport, you know, that was real. I mean, the reason they're doing that is it's not particularly Microsoft or anything, but they, you know, I'm not saying Mr. Gates is actually doing anything, because again, it's just a pawn. But when you realise that Microsoft, he married the granddaughter of the bloke who is in charge of IBM at the time and was given the license to produce Microsoft Windows or MS-DOS at the time for 100 grand. And you look at where he is now, it does, you know, a window of suspicion falls. But, you know, you can't make massive